Things that I have said to Scarlet Witch in the last few days. If COVID-19 doesn't take you out, can I? You can't spell virus without you and I. Hey, babe, you got a toilet paper? Because if you are, I could be your Prince Charmin. Just a few pickup lines that I think some of the boys might be able to use when they get older. So keep that in mind, sixth grade boys. Keep those stored away in the back of your memory for a while, and that way, when you're in high school or college or whenever you start to think about dating, you can use some of those lines. All right. So we are beginning our unit now on the civilization that sixth graders usually get the most excited about, Greece, the ancient Greeks. So this is going to cover a few chapters. And I don't know if we're going to break it up into tests or quizzes. I haven't decided how we're going to do that. But just know for now, we're going to be doing at least 2 chapters on ancient Greece, maybe more. So the ancient Greek civilization is a civilization that lasts from about 2,000 years before Christ to about 500 years after Christ. So the reason it started in 2000 BCE is because that's when the first Greek-speaking peoples started to inhabit Greece and other areas in the Mediterranean Sea. And then by around the year, I said 500 years after Christ, I meant 500 years before Christ. By about 500 BCE, the Greek civilization essentially collapses through a variety of wars, and a lot of its territory becomes Roman-occupied territory. So the Roman Empire is going to absorb what used to be a lot of ancient Greece. All right. So we're going to learn how the ancient Greeks lived. Of course, we're going to learn about Greece's unique geography and climate and why that had such a big impact on their development. In fact, that's what you read about in chapter 13, section 1. We're going to learn about their religion and social classes. So, going through all the features, the 7 features of ancient civilizations. We're going to learn about its economy and its government system, meaning its politics. And then we're going to learn about aspects of its culture. So these would be poets, artists, philosophers, politicians. And of course, we're also going to learn about the part of its culture that you guys are probably most excited about, Greek mythology, ancient Greek gods and goddesses, and how all of this is part of our Western culture today. So there are 2 civilizations that we study in 6th grade that have a huge impact on our culture in the West today, especially because we are a largely Christian culture. And one of them we already studied. Can you think of what it is? Yes, Adam, the ancient Hebrews. Very good. And the second culture is going to be Greece, right? Greece also, we're also going to learn about how Greece interacted with other civilizations, like their trading partner and constant opponent in war, the Persian Empire. Okay, so when I made this slideshow, I didn't realize how much I crammed into each individual slide. So this slideshow is 23 slides long. Really, I probably should have made it like 30 slides long, because now that I'm looking at it, I crammed a bunch of text onto each individual slides. So that was my mistake. I apologize for that. Don't be overwhelmed by all the text you see on the slides. It's actually not any more information than you have in a normal chapter. It's just I fit it all into 23 slides, and I added a lot of pictures. So that's why I also added a lot of commentary too. So that's why it looks so dense if you're looking at the slides. So please don't be intimidated by that. Okay, so Greece is part of something called the Aegean world or the Mediterranean world, right? So the Mediterranean Sea, as you guys know by looking at a map, is a large ocean or sea um, in between the continents of Europe, Africa, and Asia, and this is where Greece is located, right? That's what the Mediterranean Sea is. Um, Now, the Mediterranean Sea is also made up of several smaller seas. One of them is called the Ionian Sea, and another one is called the Aegean Sea. So, if you see Aegean or Ionian, just understand that these are smaller sections of the Mediterranean, which is much larger. All right, so the Mediterranean world or the Aegean world refers to all of the civilizations and all of the cultures connected to the Mediterranean Sea. And in the Mediterranean world, ocean life is really, really important, right? So there's a lot of sea travel and trade. There is a unique diet called the Mediterranean diet, which relies heavily on seafood. We're going to talk about why this is. And Greece, of course, is part of this Mediterranean or Aegean world. Greece is kind of right in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. It's not an island. It sticks out from the southern portion of Europe, or some people would call it the southwestern part of Asia, but I really think of Greece as part of Europe more than Asia. Greece is very dry, rocky, and hilly. And it sticks out from the southern part of Europe. It's a peninsula. So you guys have learned what a peninsula is. It's a body of land surrounded by water on three sides. So on the west, Greece faces something called the Ionian Sea. And then on the east part of the peninsula, we have the Aegean Sea. And then to the south, we have the Mediterranean Sea. All right. So the Aegean Sea has hundreds or maybe even thousands of islands. It kind of depends on what your definition of an island is. And Greece occupies a lot of these islands, right? The Greek people start to overpopulate the Greek peninsula, and so they sail away and they move on to all of these islands in the Aegean Sea. The Ionian Sea has some islands too, just not as many. So that's why there aren't that many Greek peoples in the Ionian Sea. All right. So yeah, like I said, Greece had too many people and not enough land for its population, and so a lot of its people are going to move away from the Greek peninsula and live on these islands. Right? They start to colonize these islands. And these islands are going to become really important places for trade. Another important thing we need to know, and I'm going to get to Greek geography in a second, is that Greece does not have any major rivers or lakes. And so therefore it had to rely pretty much exclusively on the sea for most of its natural resources. So it gets fish and other things from the sea. And yeah, not like other civilizations which can rely on lakes and rivers for natural resources. Okay, so a fifth of Greece's land is made up of these islands in the Aegean Sea. Most of Greece's land is made up of rocky hills and mountains, and it has thousands of bays and inlets that kind of cut into mainland Greece. So ocean water flows kind of like a river through parts of Greece, although it's not actually a river. And so Greece's geographic features make it very difficult to travel from one part of Greece to another. So imagine you have a couple of Greek city-states. We'll talk about what city-states are in a second. But let's say that Mariangela is in a city-state here. And then like 10 miles away, we have, I don't know, Chelsea in a city-state over here, right? So Mariangela and Chelsea are only separated by 10 miles. But because of Greece's geography, it's very rocky and hilly in between those two city-states. And so there's like mountains that separate the two. So if Mariangela wants to travel to Chelsea city-state, she either has to climb over the mountains, which takes forever, or she has to go all the way around the mountains. So even though they're only separated by 10 miles, in reality, they have to travel like maybe 100 miles to get to each other. All right. So Greece's rocky terrain and mountains and hills make it really, really difficult to travel from one part of Greece to another. And also because it's so rocky and mountainous, there are not very many roads in Greece. Right? It's really hard to build roads through mountains. So most travel and trade has to go by ship instead. Right, so Mariangela and Chelsea are separated by 10 miles, but they have mountains in between them. And rather than traveling over the mountains or going around the mountains, instead what Mariangela does to get to Chelsea city-state, she goes backwards. She goes to the beach, she gets on a ship, and then she sails around the Greek peninsula to get to Chelsea city-state. So even though they're separated by 10 miles, it might take 2 days to get there. All right. So yeah, most travel in Greece is done by ship. Greece is also isolated from a lot of southern Europe because of its geography, because it's a peninsula, because it's cut off from Europe and other parts of the Mediterranean by ocean and by mountains. But it still has a lot of interaction with these others. It just makes it really hard to get from point A to point B. And then, of course, they don't have a river valley because they don't have a major river. So Greece can't rely on river-based trade, river-based natural resources, and can't farm crops like grain and things like that, which you need a river valley for. All right, so we're going to stop there because my neighbor is using a jackhammer and it's annoying me. So I will make another video talking about the rest of Greek geography and climate later. Peace out.